Pacifica Radio, I'm Scott Baba. The United Nations Security Council approved a ceasefire resolution proposed by the United States yesterday. The resolution calls for an immediate ceasefire and the release of hostages, followed by the withdrawal of Israeli forces from Gaza and a plan for rebuilding the devastated Gaza Strip. The resolution passed with no opposition, but optimism at the UN was tempered by questions about details. Christopher Martinez filed this report.
Colleagues, today we voted for peace.
U.S. Ambassador Linda Thomas-Greenfield spoke to the United Nations Security Council Monday after the body approved a Gaza ceasefire resolution on a vote of 14-0 with one abstention. The deal outlines 3 phases, starting with an immediate ceasefire, the release of hostages, and delivery of humanitarian aid at scale. The second phase is a permanent end to hostilities and a full withdrawal of Israeli forces from Gaza. The third phase is a multi-year reconstruction plan for Gaza. Thomas Greenfield says the Security Council has faced divisions over the war, and the world has taken notice. But now, she says, there's another side to the story.
Because today we adopted the 4th resolution on this conflict. For the 4th time, we have spoken out and made clear the only way to end this cycle of violence and build a durable peace is through a political settlement.
Guyana's ambassador says the Security Council must lead.
This Council's responsibility for achieving a just end to this war is not eliminated by the adoption of this resolution. This Council must continue to work assiduously to bring an end to the war and to ensure accountability for all the atrocities committed during its course.
Reporting for Pacifica Radio News KPFA, I'm Christopher Martinez.
Speaking today during his Mideast trip, Secretary of State Antony Blinken said the vote in favor of the U.S.-backed proposal made it, quote, as clear as it possibly could be that the world supports the plan. He again called on Hamas to accept it and said Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu had reaffirmed his commitment to the proposal. Hamas also welcomed the Security Council vote and said it supports the broad outlines of the agreement but wants assurances it will be implemented. Malawi's vice president and 9 others have been killed in a plane crash. This according to the country's president today. The wreckage of the military plane carrying Vice President Saulos Chilma was located in a mountainous area in the north of the country after a search that lasted more than a day. There were no survivors of the crash. Malawian President Lazarus Chakwera made the announcement in a live address on state television. The plane went missing yesterday morning while making the 45-minute flight from the southern African nation's capital, Lilongwe, to the city of Mzuzu to the north. Germany is hosting a recovery conference for Ukraine ahead of an upcoming peace summit in Switzerland. Charles de Ledesma reports.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky and German officials are meeting at the Ukraine Recovery Conference in Berlin. Achim Steiner, administrator of the United Nations Development Programme, says talks in particular aim to gather support for Ukraine's recovery from the destruction wreaked by Russia's war.
Our focus is very much on early recovery and reconstruction. And as you can imagine, with millions of people displaced and millions of people being refugees, the importance of helping Ukraine and its economy to continue to function, to provide employment and incomes remains a top priority.
Among immediate problems Ukraine faces, sustained Russian attacks on its power grid in recent weeks have forced leaders in Kyiv to institute nationwide rolling blackouts. I'm Charles de Ledesma.
Chinese police say a suspect is in custody in a stabbing attack on 4 instructors from Iowa's Cornell College who were teaching at a Chinese university in the northeast city of Jilin. Julie Walker reports.
Police say the 55-year-old suspect was walking in a park Monday when he bumped into one of the instructors and began stabbing them, along with a Chinese person who tried to intervene. China's foreign ministry calls it an isolated incident, but says the investigation continues. The 4 U.S. instructors are expected to recover. Iowa Representative Adam Zabner posted on social media that his brother was one of them, and he'd spoken to him from the hospital, and he was recovering from injuries and doing well. I'm Julie Walker.
Jurors have started their second day of deliberations in the criminal case against Hunter Biden over a gun President Joe Biden's son bought in 2018, when prosecutors say he was in the throes of a crack cocaine addiction. Jurors deliberated for less than an hour yesterday before leaving the federal courthouse in Delaware. They resumed deliberations today. Jurors are weighing whether Hunter Biden is guilty of 3 felonies in the case, pitting him against his father's Justice Department in the middle of the Democratic president's re-election campaign. Hunter Biden's lawyers have argued he did not consider himself an addict when he bought the gun. The Port of Baltimore's shipping channel has finally reopened almost 3 months after the Francis Scott Key Bridge collapsed when it was struck by a cargo ship. According to the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, some 2,000 salvage responders, including hundreds of specialists from around the world, worked to remove the heap of 50,000 tons of steel and concrete, and the passageway where the Key Bridge buckled is now, quote, safe for transit. Maryland state authorities have said rebuilding the span will take more than 4 years and cost up to $1.9 billion. I'm Scott Baba for Pacifica Radio.